You open your property tax bill, $6,000 for the year. Before you can even process that number, your phone rings. The water heater in your investment property just failed, and the plumber is quoting $4,500 for a replacement. Then comes the email. Your tenant is moving. 2 weeks later, your passive income experiment doesn't look quite so passive anymore. This is what owning a rental property actually costs. Not the version from the Instagram posts or the real estate seminar you sat through. The real cost.
And that's what we're asking today. Is this actually the path to passive wealth building everyone says it is? By the end of this, you're going to know exactly what expenses you're ignoring, how to calculate your actual cash flow instead of the fantasy version, real profit numbers from different markets, not the hypothetical ones, and finally, whether this makes any financial sense at all. Here's where the dream takes root. Real estate investment books and social media sold you a story. Buy a property, collect rent every month, watch your wealth grow while you sleep. Especially after 2008, when property values recovered, you found this appeal irresistible. It drove you to hunt for investment properties, convinced you were one purchase away from financial freedom. So you do the math, the basic calculation. You find a $300,000 property that rents for $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year. Your mortgage payment is about $1,200 a month, $12,000 a year. So $24,000 minus $12,000? That's $12,000 a year profit, $1,000 a month. On paper, you're golden. This is where your misconception roots itself and starts growing. Property taxes are the first hidden cost you try not to think about, and they're not the same everywhere. New Jersey averages $2,500 a year on a $300,000 home. Illinois, $3,800. Texas, $1,200. Same property, same value. Your annual tax burden just swung by $2,000 or $3,000 depending on which state you bought in. Then there's maintenance. Industry standard is 1% to 3% of property value annually. On your $300,000 property, that's $3,000 to $9,000 a year. It sounds manageable until reality hits. 1 year, you spend $500. The next year, your roof fails. Suddenly, you're writing a $15,000 check. Maintenance isn't smooth. It's lumpy and expensive, and it sneaks up on you. Landlord insurance costs you 20% to 50% more than homeowner insurance. Plan on $1,200 to $2,400 annually. Add that to your property taxes, add a maintenance reserve, and you're already facing $7,000 to $15,000 in fixed annual costs before your tenant even pays you once. But your tenant pays you $2,000 a month, so you're still good, right? Except vacancy is the silent killer. Your property rents for $2,000 a month. When it sits empty, you lose $2,400 every month. Nationally, vacancy runs 7% to 10%, which means you lose $2,400 to $4,000 annually. Just gone. And then there's tenant turnover. This is where your landlording venture stops looking like a business and starts looking like a catastrophe. Evictions cost you $500 in landlord-friendly states, $8,000 and up in places like California or New York. Add $1,000 to $3,000 for cleaning and repairs, and one turnover every 5 years averages $1,200 to $2,400 annually. Let's run your actual numbers. Your property brings in $24,000 a year in rent, $6,000 in property taxes, $1,500 in insurance, $3,600 for maintenance reserves, $2,400 lost to vacancy, $2,400 in management fees. That's $15,900 in expenses. So you've got $8,100 left before capital gains tax, before any surprise repair, before anything goes wrong. This is called negative cash flow, when your costs are so close to your income that any surprise makes the whole thing unprofitable. The leverage trap makes things worse. You put 20% down on your $300,000 property, borrowing $240,000 at 6% interest. First-year interest alone is roughly $14,400. Your rent is $24,000. Subtract that interest and your property barely breaks even. One maintenance surprise pushes it into the red. Here's where you start noticing something. Rental yields vary wildly by location. Yield is annual rent as a percentage of purchase price. If you bought an $800,000 property in San Francisco, it rents for $30,000 a year, 3.75% yield. That same property in Houston rents for $42,000 a year, 5.25%. Midwest markets where you invest see 8 to 10% yields. Coastal markets, 2 to 4%. High yield sounds great until you run the actual expense numbers and realize it doesn't change the outcome.
When you eventually sell, you face long-term capital gains tax of 15% federal plus state tax, typically 5 to 13%. Then realtor commission, 5 to 6%. A property you watched appreciate $100,000 nets you $60,000 to $65,000 after taxes and commission. Appreciation doesn't hit your bank account dollar for dollar. A huge chunk disappears. The rate shift between 2021 and 2023 changed everything for you. In 2021, you could get mortgage rates at 3%. In 2023, they hit 6 to 7%. That same $300,000 property now costs you $6,000 more per year in interest. Your 2021 self and your 2023 self are living in two completely different financial realities on the exact same property. Regulations determine your profitability by location. New York enforces strict rent control, 3 to 5% annual increases, and tenant-favorable eviction laws. California has Proposition 13 property tax caps, but strict rent control in many cities. Texas has no rent control, but strong landlord rights. The same property in different states creates vastly different profit potential for you. Now, here's the mistake you almost certainly made. You calculated $2,400 a month in rent. That's $28,800 annually. Minus $12,000 in mortgage payment, you got $16,800 profit. But your actual costs are $6,000 property tax, $1,500 insurance, $3,600 maintenance, $2,800 in vacancy, $2,400 management fees. That's $16,300. After expenses, you've got $12,500 left. That's just 43% of the money you collected, and you still owe the mortgage. Rental properties work for you in specific scenarios: multi-unit buildings, markets with strong appreciation and high tenant demand.
Buying significantly below market value, holding for 20 years or more, efficient management that minimizes vacancy and turnover. If you're missing these advantages, you're fighting math you can't win. There's another angle you're ignoring: opportunity cost. That $60,000 down payment could have gone into index funds, averaging 10% returns annually with zero effort on your part. Your rental property nets 4 to 6% after costs, requires active management, demands capital reserves for negative cash flow, and you can't quickly liquidate if you need the money. Over 20 years, that difference compounds hard. But here's the plot twist for you. Maybe cash flow isn't actually the game. Maybe appreciation is. A property that breaks even on rent but appreciates 3% a year, $9,000 on your $300,000 property, makes sense if you can float negative cash flow and hold for 20 plus years. After the mortgage is paid off and appreciation stacks, your wealth builds. But this requires you to have capital reserves, the patience for a long hold, and faith that your local market won't collapse. There's another twist nobody mentions. At scale, rental properties like yours become wealth concentration vehicles. When properties are investment assets instead of income-generating businesses, housing becomes speculative. You and landlords like you collectively drive up prices and reduce homeownership. You struggle with the math, but your collective effect reshapes housing markets. That landlord from the beginning? You. Staring at a $6,000 tax bill and a $4,500 emergency repair, wondering what went wrong? You weren't having a bad year. You were having a normal year. Passive income is mostly myth for landlords in average markets. Rental wealth works for some. Specific markets, long holds, multiple units, but not the way it's sold in books and courses. The real path is neither fast nor passive.